Hey guys, it's Kevin again. That's my review for Daredevil Season 1, Episode 6, Condemned. And holy shit, what an episode this was. This was by far the best episode of the season. I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I mean, seriously, this episode was crazy. So much happened in this episode. This episode is basically one straight action scene. Like, honestly, compared to episode 2, this was nothing. Episode 2 is nothing compared to this episode. There was so much more action in this episode. But what I like about this episode is that even though there was all this action, it didn't, get away from the story. There was still a lot of story in this episode, and there was a lot that happened in this episode, definitely setting up for what I think is going to be a very tense second half of the season, because we are pretty much at the half point of the season. Well, after next week's episode, that is what the half point of the season, and I definitely feel like it's going to be a very tense last half of the season that I can't wait for. By the way, guys, couple announcements. You guys may be wondering, where the hell are your Bloodline reviews? I'm going to end up stop reviewing Bloodline, but I'm not going to stop reviewing it altogether. I'm going to finish the show, and then I will review the rest of the show when I'm done with the season. Mad Men review's going up tomorrow. I don't know when that's happening, but let's get into this episode because it was amazing. So as we know, at the end of last week's episode, the police caught Daredevil, and Daredevil is basically a fugitive now. They order Daredevil to drop to his knees, and the vigilante steps away from Vladimir. He knows that he has to do this. One of the things I love about Matt is that he knows he doesn't really have a choice. He has to do this, and he does his order. They handcuff him. They prepare to kill Vladimir, which I thought was going to happen in that scene. But the thing is, I don't want them to kill Vladimir, because obviously Vladimir knows stuff that's not true. He thinks, of course, that Matt killed Anatoly when it was, of course, was Wilson that did it. So he's saying that they were ordered to do so, and Daredevil headbutts one officer and attacks the others, and one of them shoots and hits Vladimir in the leg by accident. Now, why do I think Daredevil saved Vladimir? I think he saved Vladimir because he wants him to know the truth. He knows that he thinks that, he killed, Anatoly, and he doesn't want Vladimir to die without knowing the truth. So, because whatever happens, Fisk and all his men, they're coming after him. So, meanwhile, the vigilante takes down the rest, then kicks the guns out of Vladimir's hand as he reaches for it, and what incredible way to start the episode. Honestly, that was probably the best opening we've ever had to Daredevil. That was insane, I have to say, and I loved it. And the rest of the episode is just as crazy, which I love. So one of the officers, Corbin, wakes up. He discovers that Matt and Vladimir are gone, and he kills a Russian sentry and then calls in reporting 2 suspects on foot, and basically they are now fugitives. So in his office, Ben lays out all the information he has on the criminal organization that is terrorizing Hell's Kitchen. If you guys remember, Hell's Kitchen was completely blown up last week, in the last episode, and basically they now have people going after Hell's Kitchen, and they want to find out who it is. So Ellison calls out the reporters together and tells them that they have reports of multiple explosions in Hell's Kitchen. It's not just their part. And Ben asks for the address because, of course, he wants to know where this could all be happening. And when he gets them, he tells Ellison that all the places were controlled by the Russians. So he starts to definitely suspect that the Russians are responsible. And the veteran walks out over Ellison's objections. And Wilson and his men leave the area. Wesley confirms that Vladimir escaped after Daredevil beat him. He figures that Daredevil will try to get Vladimir to talk concerning Wilson, which, that's the thing about Wilson, that he's not an idiot. He knows what Daredevil's doing. He knows that Daredevil wants him to know the truth, and he assures his employee that the 2 men won't make it out of Hell's Kitchen. He's going to make sure that Daredevil's dead, or he kills Vladimir. Here's what I thought he was going to do. I thought Wilson was going to get Wesley or one of his men to kill Vladimir, so that way Matt could never reveal Wesley's, Wilson's actual plan to him. That's what I thought Wilson was going to do. So Wilson warns that Maya will be disappointed after putting her trust in him and plans to tell, Vanessa, and plans to tell her the truth because she'll see through any lies. And I like that he's trying to stay loyal to Vanessa. That's definitely something I love, because any other villain in, in a Marvel movie or a DC movie, they just be like, fuck her, I don't care what they say, I have my own agenda, I'm going to do what I want. But no, he wants to stay loyal to Vanessa. He wants to keep the secret to her. He wants to tell her the truth, and I love seeing that. It's something I love about Wilson's character, is that while he's a villain, you honestly do sympathize with him, and you like his character because he is someone that is trustworthy to some, he keeps his trust. He makes you know that he can be trusted, and I love that. So I thought that was awesome. And he tells Wesley they're going to let the police do their jobs, and basically they're not going to do anything. So Blake and which honestly was probably the best thing to do since he's trying to, keep his trust in Vanessa. He doesn't want to get her involved. I can understand why he's doing that. So Blake and Hoffman lead a sweep through the Russians' warehouse, and they find one man who survived the blast trapped in rubble. They torture him for Vladimir's location, and when the detectives are satisfied that he doesn't know anything, Blake shoots him dead, and he tells the other crooked cops to kill any Russians that they find. So basically, they're going out, and they're planning on killing all these Russians, and this episode I'm like, oh my god, this episode's insane. So Daredevil carries Vladimir into a building to avoid the police, and Vladimir vows to kill him for killing Anatoly, and this scene I really loved here, because any other show, it would take episodes and episodes and episodes for these reveals to happen, but since this is Daredevil, and since it's such a fast-paced show, well, it also is slow-paced, but things like this, it's very fast-paced. He tells him right here that he didn't do it, and he warns that Wilson set Vladimir up and tells him to choose a side, which I like that he told Vladimir to do that, because honestly, Vladimir has to choose. Does he want to ally with Wilson, or does he want to ally with Matt, who probably could save him, and honestly would probably be the best thing for him? And when Daredevil says that he wants Wilson on trial for what he's done, the Russian can get payback, Vladimir calls him a fool and passes out. Now, I don't think Vladimir realizes how powerful he really is. Like, seriously, he's a very powerful villain, and while Wilson is very powerful, Matt is just as powerful, and I think he doesn't realize how powerful Matt really is, and I really love seeing that. So Foggy and Karen take the wounded Elaine to the hospital, and I really didn't know what was going to happen with Foggy and Karen, obviously, after the last episode. So Claire comes over and leads Elaine away to treatment, and Foggy realizes that he was wounded in the explosion, and, he's like, oh, it's not that big. I love, he's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I was just shot. It's nothing bad. That would explain the, soothing pain that I was going through, and I'm just like, Foggy is so awesome, honestly. That's why I love Foggy. He's such a badass. He doesn't even let pain bother him. Honestly, he's awesome. That's why Foggy's probably my favorite character. So as Karen goes to get help, Shirley coordinates relief efforts and realizes that Claire is there, and she says that it's good to have her back and moves on. And Daredevil calls Claire on the burner he gave her, and basically he warns that he can't call 911 because the police want Vladimir dead. So if he calls 911, Vladimir's going to die, and he doesn't want that. So he has a bit of a predicament here, and he has Claire walk him through the stabilizing the Russians before they start. And Claire obviously is pissed about what's going on because of course, Vladimir is the one that beat her up. And I can understand why Claire is so like, no, I don't want to help you here. I can understand that because Vladimir, was the one that beat her up, so much and everything, made her have all those wounds, made her really wounded. I can understand why she doesn't want Vladimir dead, why she wants Vladimir dead. So basically, before they start, but I do like that Claire is helping me out because she did promise that she will help him, and I thought that was really good. So he has Claire walk him through stabilizing the Russians, and before they start, Matt tells her that Vladimir's the man that had her beaten, but Claire helps anyway. And the vigilante finds 2 roadside flares, and Claire walks him through cauterizing the wound, and I thought that was really good. So, an officer, Sullivan, hears Vladimir screams and goes to investigate, and Vladimir finally passes out from the pain, and Daredevil hears Sullivan come in. He ducks outside Sullivan, finds Vladimir, and orders him to surrender. They capture Sullivan and tell him to stay quiet, and that was crazy there when they captured Sullivan. I'm like, oh my god, I don't know what's going to happen here. Because obviously the police are after Daredevil, and I really didn't know what was going to happen. So that's something I love this episode. The whole episode, I'm just like, oh, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I love it. So Matt asks who he works for and confirms via his heartbeat that he's telling the truth when he says the city. And again, even though he's a cop, he's no different. I mean, he could be a Russian in disguise. He could be someone who's tricking him. There could be a lot of possibilities here. So he tells Sullivan to call Central and says that it was a false alarm. Sullivan yells that he's with Daredevil, and the vigilante knocks him out. And the dispatcher calls for backup, and officers soon arrive on the scene, and Blake and Hoffman take charge. They warn that it's a hostage situation to have the officers secure the perimeter, and Ben arrives and knows that Sullivan is inside, and Blake tells him to stay back and keep his head down, and Hoffman then briefs Wesley, who tells Wilson that Daredevil has Vladimir, and a rookie cop that they don't know. So they know how powerful he is, they know what he could do, and he also warns that Ben is there, and he worked for the Union Allied Peace, but Wilson tells Wesley to reach out to all their medic contacts and make sure everyone in Hell's Kitchen sees what happens. So, because of course, that's really their plan here. So as Matt handcuffs the unconscious Sullivan to a pole, Vladimir wakes up, and Matt tells him that they're surrounded by Wilson's men, demands answers, and Vladimir asks if he draws the line, refusing to kill but letting a man dies, and warns that Matt will reach the soon point that he and Wilson have, and the Russian explains that Wesley came to them, and he commented them on their operation, then set them up for the Chinese and their heroin, And Daredevil wonders who the key is, and Vladimir says that Wesley has a money man who handled finances for everyone, so they definitely thought this out very well. And Vladimir mutters the name, and Daredevil leans in to hear it, and the Russians attack him, and Daredevil manages to take him down. They break through 2 stories of rotting floor before crashing to a halt. It's such an awesome scene, honestly. There's so many awesome action in this episode. I love it, and the television crews arrive, and Blake mocks Ben about being a washed-up newspaper reporter. And at the hospital, Karen leaves another message for Matt to call, because, of course, she is the only person at this point that does not know Matt's the Daredevil, and Foggy is not just going to randomly tell her. That's not something that's going to happen, obviously. So, Foggy's in a hospital bed, and he's telling Karen not to jump to conclusions, but she's worried, which is understandable why she's worried. I mean, there were explosions, and Foggy's hurt, so who knows what could have happened to Matt. And he tries to get up to look for his friend, but Karen pushes Foggy back down, and I love that he is so, he just wants to help out Matt, and he's so selfless that he doesn't even want to help himself, but he needs to get better. And Karen pushes Foggy back down and says that she wants him, that she wants him to stay there and stay safe, and she admits that she's had worse first dates, and I thought that was kind of funny when she said that, because honestly, this was probably the worst first date for them, and it was a first date because, of course, what was her name set up? Now I can't remember her name. Elena, Elena set it up that way, so I thought that was really funny when she said that. So basically, she admits that. So once Karen leaves, Foggy leaves a message for Matt, asking where he is. He has no idea what's going on, and he doesn't know any of what's, going on, that he's a fugitive and everything. So Matt definitely has a lot to tell him when he gets back. So Daredevil wakes up first, and the son, Vladimir, says it was fun, even if it was smart. It wasn't really smart, which it wasn't. And Vladimir's heart stops, and Daredevil administers CPR to revive him, because he has to keep him alive. He needs to keep him alive so we can get information from him, and I think it's really awesome. So the Russians point out that Daredevil couldn't even stand back and let him die, but the vigilante refused to let him go until he gives him the information he needs to bring down Wilson. That's what he needs, because he wants to take down Wilson. One of the things about this episode is that he's already starting this plan. Think of a show like The Flash. It took episodes and episodes for Barry to find out anything about Wells. And already, we already have him going after Wesley, going after Wilson. And he knows who the villain is. He knows who's after him. And that's one of the things I love about Daredevil. That's something that's great when you have 13 episodes. Is that, yeah, you do have to rush it, but it feels more natural. It doesn't feel like, oh my god, we're still hung up on this. Like, that can get very annoying. So I like that Daredevil's taking advantage of that. And it's something that I think is really awesome that they're doing. That he already knows that Wilson's the enemy and he needs to take him down. So Wesley has Blake and Hoffman clear a radio channel and hands Wilson a radio, and the driver takes them in. And outside the building, the ESU arrives, and Blake tells him to shoot anyone inside who moves as he goes inside with them. And as Daredevil tries to find a way out, he hears a subway train below the building. He clears away a grate into an access tunnel, and Wilson calls over Sullivan's radio. And Daredevil responds, and neither of them give the other their names. And this is such an awesome scene because he has no idea he's talking to Wilson, and Daredevil in the meantime has no idea he's speaking. Wilson has no idea he's talking to Daredevil, and it's such a badass scene because these two are finally, this is their first interaction, but they don't even know they're talking to each other, and it's like, we're already getting stuff that we shouldn't see till the end of the season, but we're already getting it, and I love it. So, it really sets up, I think, how awesome the end of the season is going to be. So Wilson says the two of them have a lot in common. They both want to save the city, but he's doing it on, and I like this line, because it's true. This is what they want to do. He said the two of them have a lot in common. They both want to save the city, but he's doing it on a scale that matters. And he knows that it's Daredevil that he's speaking to at this point. And I can kind of agree with Wilson. I mean, what Daredevil wants to do, he wants to fight crime and bring down criminals, but Wilson really wants to get rid of everyone, all the vigilantes from the city, and get rid of all the violence. And he tells Daredevil that he's not going to stop him, that he's arranged to have the vigilante blamed for the bombings, and Wilson offers to let Daredevil go if he kills Vladimir and reminds him of the murders that the Russians have committed. Of course, since Wilson wants Vladimir dead, Daredevil's not going to let that happen, and that's something I love. So he very quickly figures that Vladimir's important, and Wilson realizes that the Russian hasn't told him anything yet, and he says that Daredevil's belief that one man can make a difference is what makes him dangerous, and tells Wesley to give the order. So, I thought that was such an awesome scene. It's something that I didn't think we'd see for episodes, but the fact that we saw it already was just awesome. I love that. I can't get over the fact that they've already showed us something that I didn't think we'd see for episodes, and they just showed it. It was so awesome. So outside the building, Ben points out that Blake and Hoffman aren't doing any hostage negotiation, which is kind of strange. They're not doing anything. And an ESU sniper in Wilson's pay opens fire on Ben, but hits and shoots Blake in the chest by accident, and the sniper continues firing, taking out 2 more cops. The crowd takes cover. Ben tries to keep Blake alive, and Wilson tells Daredevil that he did what he was forced to do and says they won't speak again. He then tells Wesley to have their friends roll the tape, and as Claire helps with the wounded, the news run a tape from earlier of Daredevil attacking the cops, and Foggy and Karen watch this as well, and Karen recognizes Daredevil as the man who saved her life. That's all she knows about him at this point. And she doesn't believe that he's a killer, and I like seeing that because he's not a killer. He saves people's lives. Yes, he kills people, but he only does it to save people's lives. I mean, that's really what he does. And yeah, he's doing these terrible things, but you understand why he's doing these terrible things. And it honestly, you can understand why. And he has to do it, honestly. If he kept these people alive, he wouldn't be able to save some of their lives. I mean, think of what happened with Karen. If he had not killed the guys that he did, he wouldn't have been able to save Karen. It's that simple. So Foggy warns that people who wear masks always have something to hide, and I think that's an awesome line because, of course, she doesn't know that that's Matt, and I'm pretty sure that shows that Foggy is going to tell her the truth some point. I don't know when, but Foggy is going to tell her. I don't think Matt's going to tell her. I think Foggy's going to tell her, and that's going to be awesome if he does that. And now I can totally see why we have that one episode where the two are completely at each other's throats, because there's an episode called, Murdoch versus, I don't remember Foggy's last name, Nelson, Murdoch versus Nelson, and now I know why it's called that. Probably because he reveals his secret, and I definitely feel like that's what we're setting up, is that he is going to tell, Karen the truth about, Matt's secret. So Matt tries to pull the gate up, but it's too heavy, and Claire calls him and tells him what the news is saying, and Daredevil tells him there that it's Wilson, and he hears the ESU break into the building and tells Claire he doesn't get caught in whatever happens to him, and Daredevil tells Claire to take care of herself and hangs up, and I thought that was an awesome scene. So as the ESU squad move through the building, Daredevil tries to move the grate again, and Vladimir comes over and helps him. Together the two men move it. I'm kind of like, are they actually going to work together here? Is Vladimir actually going to help him? And I thought that was really cool that Vladimir actually helped him out there. So meanwhile, the ESU officers in Wilson's pay find Sullivan, they declare him dead, and then kill him, and basically, he wasn't dead already, but then they just killed him, and that was insane when they killed him. I'm pretty sure they had to kill him, but yeah, they killed him, and I thought that was really interesting. So Daredevil helps Vladimir down into the access tunnel and helps him toward a door, and it's locked, and 2 ESU men move in, and Daredevil shows Vladimir out of the way as the officers open fire and then takes them out, and Vladimir grabs one of their guns and trains it on Matt, who warns that there are 5 more men coming, and the Russian says he's going to stay and warns that Wilson controls the police and the judges. He tells Matt that there's only one way to stop him, and Daredevil will realize the truth when Wilson goes after everyone he cares about, and when he said, I'm like, oh shit, that's probably going to happen. Honestly, I could definitely see Wilson doing that. When Wilson was introduced, I looked at his face and I'm like, this is a man that's going to go after anyone that stands in his way. And I could see him doing that. I mean, he already went after Claire. He could go after Karen. He'd go after Foggy. I don't think Claire's going to be a damsel in distress. I think she's far from that. And I think if Karen was in danger, she wouldn't be damsel in distress either. So that's not really what I took this as. I mean, I could see if you guys were like, oh, we're getting a damsel in distress. But honestly, he could go after Foggy. Foggy is the person that he cares about the most. And he could go after him. He could go after even Vladimir because he wants Vladimir dead. And I'm pretty sure that Vladimir's going to work with Daredevil now. And it really is setting up for this really awesome confrontation between the two that I can't wait for, and I loved seeing that. Because, again, this is something that we would not get in other shows, till, the very last few episodes, and since they have 13 episodes, they have to do this, and I love that. I love that Daredevil's wasting no time and is already giving us these confrontations that we never thought we'd see till at this point in the show, and I love that. So, Vladimir gives Daredevil Leland's name, and I like that he gave him Leland's name. He says that Leland's going to help, but it's not what Daredevil wants. He doesn't tell him, he won't give what Daredevil needs to take Wilson down. And I think that Vladimir is going to help him eventually, but for right now, he's siding with Wilson because he's just terrified of him. Now, I think eventually Vlad will probably ally with Matt, because if Matt becomes stronger, Vladimir's going to ally with him. And since he knows that Matt, didn't kill Anatoly, what leverage does he have against Matt? Like, what does he have against him? Seriously, what does he have against him besides, they're both fugitives, they're both in trouble with the police, what does he have against him? I really don't understand. So the ESU officers approach. Vladimir tells Daredevil to go. He realizes that he has no choice, walks away as gunshots echo behind him, and he basically has to let Vladimir go, and Vladimir essentially dies. They kill Vladimir, and I'm like, wow, Vladimir just died after that. I was surprised that they actually killed Vladimir because I thought they were going to let him live so that way, Matt could get that information that he needed from him. But no, he died, and I thought that was huge when we saw that, and Vladimir dies, and that's basically how the episode ends. So overall, guys, an amazing, amazing episode. I loved this episode. If all episodes for the rest of the season are like this, that is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what happens in the rest of these episodes, because this show just, I'm loving it. I'm loving every single second, and this was by far best episode of the season, and let me talk about a few things that I think are going to happen now. Is Wilson really going to go after everyone that Matt cares about? I could definitely see this happening. He, threatened Matt with it, and I definitely feel like he's going to do that. When he's going to do that, I don't know. But I definitely feel like Matt should be worried because Wilson's going to go after Claire, Karen, Foggy. He'd go after anyone, honestly. Ben, any of them. And I think it's really interesting. How is Wilson going to respond to Vladimir's death? Is he going to congratulate Matt for doing this? I mean, I'm interested in seeing how he's going to be with that. Let's talk about Vanessa, because obviously he's worried about Vanessa. Is Vanessa going to find out about these things? Because I kind of feel like she's watching the news. I mean, obviously she's going to watch the news if she sees that he's on there, or she's going to see something about it. You can't just, say, oh, she's not going to find out. I feel like somehow she is going to find out, but how's she going to respond to this? Is he going to be able to cover himself up and make himself look better? Because I really do want things to work out between him and Vanessa, which is weird, but that's something that's so great about the show, is that they make you even root for the bad guys, which is awesome. And I'm rooting for a character that I really shouldn't, and I like that. Not really rooting, but I care about his character. I care about his character, and I want things to go well for him. Even though I want him dead, I do want things to go out for well between him and Vanessa, because I love them together. I think they're really good together. Is Foggy going to tell Karen the truth about Matt? I feel like that's definitely coming. I feel like the way they showed it, definitely, I think that's coming. I don't know when it's coming, but I know that probably that's what's coming. I think that's what they're setting up here. I think that's what's going to happen. And if that happens, that could be amazingly awesome, and I can't wait to see if that actually does happen, because I would be so happy if they did that, and that would be just awesome if they, Foggy tells Karen. But how would Matt react to that? Would Matt be upset? Obviously, I think Matt would be upset. Is that going to create tension between the two? I feel like definitely that reveal is coming. We'll see what happens there. I love the line where Claire told Matt that this is not a movie, and Matt says he doesn't see many movies, but he sees records, and that he hears a lot of records, and, because it's true, this is not a movie. That's the thing I love the show portrays. It doesn't portray it as a movie. It portrays it as real life, and that's something I think the show is doing very well, and I think that was a great line when Claire said that, because no, it's not a movie. This is real life, and he needs to be prepared for what's going to happen to him. Also, Vladimir dying, is Matt going to regret this? I definitely feel like this is going to be one of Matt's biggest regrets, but I guess we'll have to see what happens. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Overall, guys, best episode of the season. Absolutely loved it. I can't wait for next week's episode, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for a movie review. So I will see you guys for that, or it'll be for Mad Men. I don't really know when I'll get around to reviewing Mad Men. I'll review it at some point. I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.